الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونتوب إليه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد إخواني وأخواتي في الله. The topic that we will explore together inshallah ta'ala today, I labeled it the pursuit of good life. It is a very serious and a very demanding topic that brought to it the most gifted minds across cultures, civilizations, generations, and time. Time and again, there will always be an archetype, a very learned person, a voice of trust and authentic learning that will come forth in order to prescribe to us, excuse me, what constitutes good life. And you can only imagine that the choices and the flavors abound. By and large, they fall into two very large categories. There are those who swung the pendulum too far to one corner, that the definition of good life for them, meaning that you empty life from its meaning. Somehow to live a good life, you have to give up everything. It is recorded in history that there were some monasteries in the desert around Mesopotamia where people would perch themselves like birds on top of some sort of mount and abstain from food and drink and washing themselves and whatnot until some of their body parts start falling. They start losing their hair or their nails just because they starved themselves to death in the hope that they please Allah in some way. Clearly, that's a misguided outlook. The pendulum also went all the way to the other extreme, that there are those who prescribe good life in what I call today, and it's in modern times that this has become more prevalent, in what I call today the new religion. This new religion is known as the religion of more. It's never enough. There is an entire machinery that works 24/7 to feed us a lifestyle where primarily our appetite is insatiable. You just can never have enough. Somebody has assets, they want more. They have net worth, they want more. They have a large income, they want more. They have time, they want more. They have vacation, they want more. They have lifestyle, they want more. Why? Is because we cannot be left at peace with qana'a. We are constantly assaulted. We are constantly compared. It's quite fascinating, actually. The disease is worse for those who have more in comparison to those who have less, which is totally counterintuitive. You go to an island with all of the people that compete against each other. Maybe somebody has a mansion that they live in, which is probably hundreds of millions of dollars. They look across the pond, and if they have $300 million in the bank, they want 1 billion. It's not enough. It's never enough. Their skin cannot hold them. It needs to stretch constantly to go on and more. The way that you and I experience it today, it's probably through the fitness industry. You look at how the fitness industry has developed such an incredibly potent message is by selling us images. As soon as the summer arrives, they start showing you and selling you all of these very carefully sculpted bodies, and somehow they sell us that there is a path to get there. Nutrition, fitness, whatever it is, everybody can get there. And that's crazy. So both of these are disastrous recipes for pursuing or defining or giving a purpose to something called the good life. As is the case on all major requirements and characteristics of life, the Quran opines and always speaks very unambiguously. Yes, the Quran has a crisp definition of what good life is. It comes to us in Surah Al-Nahl. For those of you who wish to review it later on, the verse number is 97. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Man amila saliha, whoever does a righteous deed, min dhakarin aw untha, be they male or female, وَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ, and that person who engages in making a good deed is a believer. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prescribes how he reacts to the good life and the believer who engages into the pursuit of good life. فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبًا, we will bless that person with the good life. وَلَنَجْزِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْرَهُمْ, and we will reward them for their duly owned reward. بِأَحْسَنِ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ, with better than what that they have invested in. The verse is incredibly rich, and the balance of time of the khutbah will be to unpack it, reorient our understanding and our pursuit of the definition of what good life is. That's the first installment. Find out what are the secret keys that we can engage in activities in order to get oriented the right way, and then act upon those things so we can get there. And hopefully, with Allah's acceptance from us, inshallah, after the understanding, He grants us the access and the hidayah, the guidance to in fact pursue His prescription to get to the good life. So let's begin with what this verse teaches us in the elements that it has proposed to us. It seems to have as its foundation the starting point of the pursuit of the good life. In other words, if you are into the navigation business, you need an origination and you need a destination, and then some sort of prescription on how to get you in the most effective manner from where the origin is to the destination is, safely, expeditiously, and more importantly, without much aggravation in the road. And so that's how mapping systems work, and that's how navigation systems work. But you need to have a foundation. So there are some things that have, why are you going to the other destination? Grocery shopping, visiting a friend, meeting with parents. There is a reason, a purpose that determines why we have to put that effort. The foundation that the pursuit of good life in Islam prescribes begins from this thing, وَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ, that we have to begin from the position that we believe in something. That you do not believe in the insatiable appetite that says, well, life is a pleasure. So the more pleasure I have, the more successful I am in my good life. That is aqidah, that's a belief, but the wrong one. Life is to strip everything from what life is about. Never laugh, never enjoy, never be in a relationship that is rewarding. That is catastrophic. That is certainly a pursuit. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prescribes the foundation, the starting point, the step on which we put everything to begin our definition of the good life by believing in Him. And this argument for us, for starting everything from Aqidah in our religion, is foundational. This is why we are different from other people. You read all of the philosophers, ancient, the time of wisdom, medieval, pre-modern, modern, their definition of good life becomes cerebral. It's unbelievably abstract. You can actually never materially arrive there. It looks like a 5-year-old soccer play. You're constantly running after the ball, but you can never get the ball. That's not the purpose of this religion. The purpose of this religion is attainment. The things that get defined for us are defined as yusr and not usr. They are defined to be easy and attainable so we can benefit for them. In other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not playing gacha. That's not the purpose of the design. The design is for us to attain our fulfillment. So what does it mean to begin from a foundation where Allah helps us define the purpose of good life? It means that this thing we have inside us that's called our heart, our spiritual heart, needs to be bonded and connected to Him all the time, for every reason and from every purpose. Said differently, a good life that doesn't have Allah in it can never be good. That's my statement of the entire day. A good life, however it gets defined, whoever defines it, however it gets experienced by whoever tries to sell it, if it doesn't have Allah in it, cannot be a good life. That's the statement of the century. So that's what this entire khutbah is about. So how do we prove that? It's very simple. The Prophet ﷺ one day, after one of the prayers, كان مضطجعا على جنبه. He was laying down on the ground on one of his sides. And Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu enters where he was sleeping, and he notices that he was on the ground. So the Prophet ﷺ hears him, and then he puts himself into a sit-down position, and then he faces him. And as soon as he turns towards Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Umar notices that the entire side of the Prophet ﷺ was scarred by the hard leaves that were on the floor and tree bark from the palm trees that he was sleeping on, that left streaks across all of his side like this. You can understand only the love and the bond of the Sahaba to their model, to their friend, because the Prophet ﷺ was their friend. He pained for him, he started crying. He says, O Prophet of Allah, Allah has given you this entire world. Why do you put yourself in this condition? Why don't you ask for more to get, in other words, to some level of comfort? He was not trying to make him a king. That was not the purpose. Just a little better than that. The Prophet ﷺ responded in the following way. He said, ما لهذا بعثنا يا عمر. This is not what we were sent here for. We have another purpose. Right? So this is what I'm describing, that a good life that gets defended, that doesn't have Allah in it, can never be or can never attain the status of good life. So this orientation makes us realize that when we catch a break in life, that's a gift from Allah. That's good. That's a good life that needs to be celebrated. When we fall on hard times and somehow the tide turns and we see the light at the end of the tunnel, that's a gift from Allah. That's a form of good life. When we are into an impasse and we cannot get out of it, that's a form of getting. Having a friend in the masjid where you can relate to them, and the two hearts of our friends are linked to each other. And as you approach another Muslim, your face lights up because you saw a mirror in which you love to see yourself. That's the good life. Having a spouse where we share our life in our journey together because we both bow to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala together, that's an amazing good life. So that's what this entire good life about, that forms as the foundation. That's an outlook. That's how we understand it. And when we start from this point of view, we realize that we have done something quite extraordinary. And in what way does this differ from others? Maybe others have prescriptions that could be similar to that. Is because when we link our hearts to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to define our good life, we linked it to something that is eternal, not something that is ephemeral. For those who have the pursuit of their good life, maybe their dream is to play for the soccer team of Barcelona. What's the lifetime of a professional soccer player on the field? 3 years before an injury, 5 years if they are lucky, 7 years if they have been amazingly lucky. Then what happens to that career? What happens to the career? It's gonna end. The contract has to finish. It's done. But with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with that good life, when you finish here, this ihya that he talks about, this ihya that comes to us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought us from Adam when we did not exist at all, gave us life to become in this body, and is waiting for us to give us another one to go somewhere else. So that period of the good life is very extensive, and no one else offers an equivalent of that. I think that's an objective worth sacrificing for. That's an objective worth giving everything for. Just subhanAllah, it's a very famous story that gets told over and over again. When the Prophet ﷺ sent his letters to all of the leaders who were around him, when his letter arrived to Heraclius, who was a very, very knowledgeable and learned person, he asked to meet the people from whom this new person who claims to be a prophet came in. The Arabs of Mecca at that time, having Abu Sufyan of their head as an arch enemy and a vowed enemy of the Prophet ﷺ, bent on destroying him, decided to go at the head of the delegation to be the spokesperson for the Meccans to try and defame the reputation of the Prophet ﷺ. So Heraclius then looks at him with a demeaning eye. So he had a set of test questions for him. And one of them was, who follows him? Abu Sufyan, actually he said it. After he became a Muslim, he testified to what went into the dialogue in his head that he didn't share with anybody. He said, I was tempted to lie. Listen to this. He said, I was tempted to lie, but I could not because I feared that the Arab will record my words as a liar for the rest of time. So I couldn't do it. So he turned around then and he answered the question. He said, well, the people who are poor in the community really follow him. Then Heraclius asks him an unbelievably probing question. He says, and do they leave Islam after they become Muslims, after they follow him? And he said, no. After they accept Islam, they stay with it despite his condition. The morality of the story is the following one, is that at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, those who followed him to enjoy this good life, make no mistake about it, they were not driving in coupe Mercedeses and they were living in mansions of $5 million a piece and whatnot. The term thawb in the Arabic language that used to exist in the time of the Arabs meant a single piece of cloth that is not even sewn. So the Prophet's companions, when they go around him, they didn't even have pants and shirts and things of that nature. They had a little piece of cloth that looks like your bed sheets that they would wrap themselves around, and that meant that they had the world at their feet because it was the good life. Just being in the companionship of the Prophet ﷺ, that's enough for me. The great, great, great poet Allama Iqbal, Muhammad Iqbal, went to study in Europe and then came back to India. When he arrived, the number of people who were his close friends and students were eager to hear about his perspective when he returns, about What did you hear that the non-Muslim Europeans said about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that could enlighten us about how they understand us from the outside? He said, I don't care. The only thing that matters for me, is suffices to me that I am part of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's enough. Right? So that's a perspective of good life. These are choices we make that have implications. So after Aqidah, we come to the second, think of it as lever or advice or use of material that helps us get to the good life. And that is, when we connect our hearts to Allah, we need to activate the first actuator that helps us make our way towards the good life, and that is our speech. How do we invest our speech into the good life? This is actually extremely important. It doesn't matter to me what school of linguistics you belong to or you are an expert in or where it comes from, because it's not the forum and it's not our place to discuss those. But regardless of which one you belong to or you believe is authentic or true or you have the facts for or the science for, there is a general consensus that the purpose of speech, as the Quran describes it, وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا, as the Quran says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught Adam all of the words that later on became the words that we speak. There is something very important about wording. Words have power. They can heal, they can fix, they can inspire, they can move people to extraordinary limits. The Prophet ﷺ used to be somebody, and I actually did the exercise myself. I took all of the recorded khutbahs of the Prophet ﷺ over a period of time and put them into a map and plotted them and was trying to calculate an average. When the Prophet ﷺ makes a public khutbah that we hear about in the Sirah and the Sunnah all the time, when we hear that the Prophet ﷺ stood, وَقَفَ عَلَى الْمَنْبَرِ, and then he says something to people, I was always curious, how much time did he take? How much time did he take to communicate all things? Whoa, I was blown away. Most of his speeches are under 3 minutes. Most of his speeches are under 3 minutes. And then somehow, by the power of his presence and by the power of this guidance that is called the prophetic guidance, those words did not move the people who were around him. They are in the hall here today for somebody like me to echo them in this prayer hall. So they got heard 1500 years later for just 3 minutes. Why? Is because there is power in words. How do we know that? That's our second ayah into the khutbah today that comes to us from Surah Ibrahim. And that's verse number 64, if you want to review it later on, number 64. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ ضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا. Don't you see on how Allah has given a similitude or an example? The general understanding of the scholars of tafsir, the exegesis of the Quran, when a particular section of the Quran opens up with a statement or a verse that begins like this, it is a corollary for the audience to be called to attention, to realize that please pay attention because what I'm going to say next is important. That's the purpose of how the Quran opens up pedagogically some sections like this. So what is this method? What is this example Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given? Kalimatan tayyibatan, a good word, like a good life, a good word. Kashajaratin tayyibatin, it's like a wonderful tree, it's like a good tree. Asluha thabitun, the roots and the trunk of that tree are stable, they are good, they have nutrients, there is no disease or fungus associated with them. وَفَرْعُهَا فِي السَّمَاءِ, it has the power to give branches and fruits that can go all the way to the heavens. That's exactly what words do. Have you ever seen like a small child or a baby and they come in and they stumble on something and they fall and they hurt themselves, and all they need to hear is that their mother says, you're okay and you're there, and it's gone. The pain is gone. And there are some people that are totally broken, heartbroken, or they fall on hard times and whatnot, and they come to a friend for good counsel, and they give them good counsel, and they feel like the light has been turned on into the room, and now they feel like they are born again. And it works the other way around. Words are also a terrible responsibility when they get misused. We live in a world today, and I always use this sentence because it's a powerful way pedagogically to communicate what I mean by it. Words today have become weaponized. They get used for disinformation, misinformation, counter-information, create imagery and reality, and it's all done through words. It's a word that builds on word that builds on word in order for people to sometimes get in the fog and get disconnected and get lost into the wilderness of claims and counterclaims. We have a choice there. And the two choices are very simple. A Muslim is never a link that propagates a chain of mistrust. So if you are a Muslim and there is a chain of information that's coming through you and it arrives to you, it's in the Quran. And if somebody that comes to you whose information is not trusted, seek to verify the information. The United States jury system, I'm going to repeat this for the third time. The United States jury system has 12 people on the jury. Why? Why it's 12? Because they use the Islamic principle of the Lafif. And what is the Lafif jury system that came from Islam when they took it from Sicily? It was a very simple idea. If you cannot find 4 witnesses that can be trusted, how do you solve that problem? You give yourself more opportunity for information by getting 12 sources of information so you can counterbalance the claims and the counterclaims. This is embedded in our religion. It's what we do every day. That's how our legal system is built. So we have an obligation to work towards that. And we have an obligation. First link is to verify. The second link is to protect someone else. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله تعالى عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من سطر أخاه المسلم, whoever, it doesn't matter who does this, as long as the motivation is a good one, and you are able to keep confidential a shortcoming of your brother or your sister, سطر الله عليه يوم القيامة. On the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will keep your shortcomings confidential in front of the larger crowd. So if you think about the power of words, they are extremely powerful. And then we end up with the last section of the verse, and on it we conclude the khutbah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن. In this religion, one of its hallmarks is always the idea that it's not about a cerebral or a preaching exercise, it's always about what is actionable in it. When we sit in a masjid and we listen to something and we walk away after the 20 minutes and the 30 minutes, the question is not, what did I learn today? That would be an interesting question, but that would be the wrong question. The question is always, what can I put into action from what I heard today? That is the purpose about why we come here once every Friday, in order to drink from the sacred source. We go back out there, and in every single Friday, we refill the tank with a purged type of oxygen and nutrients, so we have the strength, we have the stamina, we have the faith, and we have the orientation to be able to go on another week towards new horizons and new discoveries and new ideas. And that comes from what? From al-amal, translating what we learn into action. And when we do that, the end of the verse was, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and those I will reward them with the best reward possible. So my hope in conclusion, and we close on this remark here, that today, inshallah, you might have been treated to 3 very simple ideas. Number 1, we have an alternate definition of what good life is. And it is based on starting with the litmus test, which is Allah in it or not in it? Once we are starting from that orientation, the next immediate link after it is, what do we put to the service of our good life is our speech. And immediately after that, we support it with our actions. And inshallah, if we follow this prescription, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from us, inshallah. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه فإنه المستغفر. الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، أشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم، وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واجعلنا منهم، واخذل من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعل منهم. عباد الله، أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله، وأقم الصلاة إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء.
الله أكبر الله أكبر، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، قد قامت الصلاة، قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله.
الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين، إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين، اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. والضحى والليل إذا سجى، ما ودعك ربك وما قلى، وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى، ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى. ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى، ووجدك ضالا فهدى، ووجدك عائلا فأغنى. فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر، وأما السائل فلا تنهر، وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين، إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين، اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ألهاكم التكاثر حتى زرتم المقابر، كلا سوف تعلمون ثم كلا سوف تعلمون، كلا لو تعلمون علم اليقين لترون الجحيم ثم لترونها عين اليقين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. We would like to thank Dr. Lazzouni for this great khutbah. Jazakallah khairan, Doctor. As you know, inshallah, Dhul Hijjah will start on Sunday. So I just remind my brother, if you are planning to do Udhiyah, so tomorrow at Maghrib is the last day to like cut your nails and your hair. So just a reminder. Also, inshallah, we will have a program starting from Sunday. We will have a Qiyam Layl every night. We'll pray 2 rak'at after Isha, and we'll have a light breakfast. If someone is planning to fast, you are encouraged to fast during these 10 days. It will be a big reward. I know it's a long fast in these summer days. I don't know it's summer or not, but it will be a long hours, I know, but it will be a big reward. So I encourage you to try to fast, inshallah. We'll have dates and milk and water at Maghrib every day, inshallah, during these 10 days. And we'll have Qiyam Layl every night, inshallah, after Isha prayer. May Allah accept from you all. Jazakumullah khair. Yeah. Yeah, inshallah, we'll combine Asr prayer now, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. After the prayer, inshallah. الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Inshallah, we'll combine the Asr, inshallah, because of the weather. استقيموا. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. كريم. Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, we're gonna make dua for some people that they are sick and for all the sick people, inshallah. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى اله واصحابه اجمعين. اللهم انت الشافي اشفيهم شفاء لا يغادر سقما. اللهم انت الشافي اشفيهم شفاء لا يغادر سقما. اللهم انت الشافي اشفيهم شفاء لا يغادر سقما. اللهم بعزتك وقوتك ورحمتك ولطفك اللهم اشفيهم انت الشافي اشفيهم شفاء لا يغادر سقما. اللهم اجعل مرضهم يا رب في حسنات تغفر لهم يا رب وترحمهم. اللهم اشفيهم شفاء لا يغادر سقما. اللهم اشف مرضى المسلمين واشف مرضانا يا رب العالمين، واجعل مرضهم يا رب كفارة لذنوبهم بفضلك وكرمك يا أرحم